Hello virtual pilots, today we are going to go to the startup procedures for the Soviet MiG-15 in DCS World. Developed by Mikhail Gorevich for the Soviet Union, the MiG-15 was one of the first successful jet fighters with swept wings to achieve high transonic speeds. It has a vast operational history all around the world, with its first flight being recorded on December 13, 1947. Following the instructions available in the sim, we are going to go step by step in every procedure, highlighting the important switches you need to remember in order to bring this historical jet fighter to life. We will perform a cold and dark startup, we will taxi and learn to control the differential braking system, and after that, we will take off and climb to the assigned altitude. So let's start! First thing we will check is that on our left hand side we can move the fuel shutoff valve either by pressing home followed by right shift plus home or by assigning an axis to it in the controls panel. The startup procedures involve the following basic elements: supplying electrical power, turning on the aircraft systems, starting the engine, and pressurizing the cockpit. We set the cockpit markings in English from the special menu in DCS World Options. Let's contact the ground crew by opening the radio menu and ask them to place the wheel chocks. They will ensure we don't accidentally roll off the apron once the engine is started. At this moment in time, I am using voice commands to instruct the ground crew, but you can use the default key for communications, followed by F8, F4, and F1 command. Товарищ Vasily, please place the wheel chocks.
Принял. Командир, колодки установлены.
Okay, let's check outside. Yeah, the wheel chocks are placed. Now we will need to request electrical power. This particular model has only one battery, and if you would like to try to start it without external power, you won't have enough charge to do so. I will contact Vasily again, so stand by. Товарищи, you can set ground power on.
Принял. Командир, наземное электропитание подключено.
So we got power now? If you're not sure, look at the 3 green lights under the landing gear lever. Now we will focus on the right switch panel. We will right-click every switch aside from the battery. I know it's a bit unusual, but trust me, we will do that only after the engine start. Good. Now we will move to the left switch panel, where we will turn on the booster pump, ignition pump, engine instruments, and second tank pump. And now we are ready to start the engine. First, we need to make sure that the throttle is set all the way back in the idle position. Next, we open the cover for the engine start button. Now let's talk about what's going to happen. Once we press the engine start button, the RPM will begin to climb quickly. When it passes 600, which will be indicated on the smaller inner arc of the RPM gauge, we will need to open the fuel shutoff valve halfway. Let's see how we do that. There are 2 ways, as we discussed in the beginning. We either press the home key, or we have assigned an axis on our throttle, like I did, and move it halfway. Now after doing that, the RPM will reach 1000 in a few seconds, at which point we need to smoothly open the fuel valve all the way down. It's imperative you listen to the engine sounds as you do it, and if you hear a dropping in pitch, it means you are doing it too fast. I will try to show you the difference when we start the procedure. As we do all of this, we keep an eye on the EGT gauge to ensure it does not climb over 650 degrees Celsius. If it does, the start must be aborted by closing the fuel shutoff valve. Okay, I think we are ready. We press the engine start button for 2 seconds to initiate engine start. We monitor the RPM as it climbs to 600. Check. We open the shut-off valve halfway. There. That was too much. Just listen to it. We monitor for 1000 RPM. Check. And now we smoothly open the valve to full down. Monitor EGT temperature. Engine is at idle between 2400 and 2600 RPM. Everything looks good. Okay, now we can close the canopy by clicking on the lever next to our right hand side. We need to add some throttle in order to increase the RPM between 4000 and 5000. As we reach past 4000, the generator off light will go dark in order to confirm that the generator is engaged. There we go. Now we are free to disconnect the ground power unit. Let's contact Tovarishchi Vasily, who hopefully didn't went for a smoke in the meanwhile. Vasily, ground power off. Спасибо.
Принял. Командир, наземное электропитание отключено.
Хорошо. Guess what we do next? You are correct. We turn on the battery. Now, in case we plan to do some high altitude flying, we will need to pressurize the cockpit and turn on the oxygen supply. On the right hand side, we have the air valve that we need to turn by scrolling the mouse wheel past the black index to either blue, yellow, or red. That translates to cold, warm, and hot. And on our left hand side, we need to turn the oxygen supply valve counterclockwise in order to open oxygen flow to our mask. Next, we need to set the flaps for takeoff by placing the flaps control handle to the 20 degrees position. After this, we shouldn't forget to unlatch the landing gear control handle. It's good to do this in preparation for takeoff. Also good to remember is to remove the wheel chocks. Vasily, ready for taxi. Remove the wheel chocks please and give the OK signal when clear on the side.
Принял. Командир, колодки убраны.
Спасибо. So we did a cold and dark start with a MiG-15. Next up, we are going to learn how to taxi with it. The MiG-15 features a differential braking system. The nose wheel is not steerable, but is instead free-castering and turns freely along the direction of travel. To execute turns on the ground, we need to press the wheel brake lever at the same time as we press the rudder pedals in the direction we want to turn, in order to apply brake pressure to the corresponding main wheel. We need to keep in mind that the aircraft requires around 6000 RPM in order to start moving from a standstill. And once in motion, we should keep the RPM around 5000 for a safe taxi speed. That needs a bit of training as the throttle inputs have a long delay. So before we start taxiing, let's check out the brakes. You can press and hold W on the keyboard or assign a button on your HOTAS system like I did. The indicated pressure is on the left side just next to the throttle. Now let's press the brake lever and hold it as we push up the throttle at 6000 RPM. Passing 5000 RPM. And 6000. Our friend Sergey is in the lead car in front and will take us on a short taxi ride starting with a 90 degrees turn to the left. Now, in order to get used with the throttle, let's lower the RPM to around 5000 as we need to do this once we taxi. As we can see, it takes a few seconds. Okay, releasing brake. Increasing RPM. We are on the move. For our turn to the left, we need to press the rudder and squeeze the brake lever in order to turn. So left rudder and brake lever. Now to return the wheel back, in order to follow Sergei, we need to add a bit of right rudder and again squeeze the brake, at the same time juggling with the throttle. It's like playing the piano. Now we will perform a long turn around the parking space. There we go. That wasn't so bad. Okay, so our lead has stopped, checking our reflexes. And we move again. This time we will take the runway and align exactly as we would before performing a takeoff. Now prior to entering any runway, always check for incoming traffic, even if you have clearance to enter. Clear right. Clear left. Sergei confirms. Let's take the runway. We will taxi forward behind the car and try to line up as much as possible to the runway course. Now that should do it. Next up, we will prepare for takeoff. The process is fairly straightforward. Run the engine between 8,000 and 9,000 RPM while holding the airplane standing using the wheel brakes and perform a final cockpit safety check. Release the wheel brakes and power up to max and begin the takeoff run. Maintain directional control using the pedals and wheel brakes if needed, and once reaching 50 km per hour, use only pedals. Rotate the nose at approximately 160 km per hour. Lift off between 220 to 130 km per hour, maintain a climb attitude and heading, and retract the landing gear and flaps. Now about the landing gear and flaps, they have in-frame indicators. The flaps indicator is only one on the left side wing, and the landing gear indicators have a rod on the top section of each wing and on the left side of the nose. When the indicators are up, it means that the gear and flaps are extended, and when they are lowered in the frame, it means that the gear and flaps are retracted. Now let's prepare for takeoff. We will want to keep the runway course, and as we rotate the stick, we want to make sure we don't pull too far back, as we may risk a tail strike or stall after liftoff. We should only pull back a quarter from the neutral position. A good reference is to place the horizon along the bottom of the front windshield frame. Checking control surfaces. We are all set. We hold down the wheel brake and advance the engine RPM between 8,000 and 9,000. And 8,000, we are not moving. Now we check the cockpit for any signs of malfunctions or warnings. And when ready, we release the brakes and advance the throttle to full. Flaps are set for takeoff position. Gear lever is unhatched. Indicators look good. Ready? Take off. Throttle up. Maintaining course. (160). Rotate. Easy raising the nose. Gear up. Flaps up twice to move the handle to the retract position. Gear indicator lights show 3 red, it means that the gear is raised and locked. We also check the mechanical position indicators on the wing. Flaps move to neutral position and landing gear as well. Maintaining climb, checking throttle inputs. We apply trim in order to stabilize and maintain our attitude. And that's it. We perform a cold and dark startup, we taxied and learned how to use the differential braking system, and we took off from the airfield in a proper manner. Next, we will continue our tutorial series for DCS World featuring old and new modules available now and in the future. Hope you found our video informative, and be sure to give us a like as it helps the YouTube algorithm recommend our videos to more users along the way. And subscribe to be in touch with all the latest news from your favorite simulators and games. I am Andres Celesti, reminding you to fly safe, and I'll see you next time.